Hello, listeners. Welcome to another great podcast. This is Satavisa. For today's podcast, we have with us Kaavya Prasad, founder of Lumos Labs. Hello, Kavya. Welcome to Analytics Insight. It's great to have you here.
Hi, Satavisa. Thanks for having me at your podcast.
Thank you. Now, can you please give me a brief about your company?
Yeah, for sure. So I can start from like the beginning, right? So we were incepted in 2018. Back then, what we essentially did as an organization was run several developer engagement programs for different platforms in Web3. So think of it as a company that essentially was bringing more developers into the ecosystem that is Web3 and helping developers with education in terms of what you need to know to become a blockchain developer and how can you basically contribute to this ecosystem. So we ran these programs and the form factors usually change. So depending on what the platforms required at that point in time, we would run a hackathon, maybe run a college education drive, or even a startup accelerator program, depending on the maturity of the platform that we worked with. Over the last 4 years, we've done over 50 programs with several different clients, and every other prominent chain out there has worked with us in some form or the other. And very recently, in the beginning of 2022, we decided to launch a product. The product is again in lines with what we're doing in terms of bringing more developers into the ecosystem. And I can probably get into what that product looks like further into the podcast.
Well, that sounds really amazing. Now, I'm really curious to know what kind of innovative technologies you people are using in Lumos Lab.
Right. So this actually will get me to talk about the product a little further, right? So what we're essentially trying to do is build an ecosystem for developers and make it easier for discovery of opportunities for developers. So in the last couple of years, we've noticed a few challenges in the ecosystem that we thought we could solve. So one main thing is that opportunities are super scattered in this ecosystem. Each chain has its own community that they're building on, say, Discord. They have their own websites where they put out their chain specific opportunities. But there is no one place that developers can essentially find opportunities that are aggregated across chains. And those are immense. That was one. The second thing is developers, again, their identities are very scattered. So you have, GitHub where a little bit of their repositories are showcased. So their pet projects are showcased. You have DevFolio, DevPosts, platforms like that where, hackathon winnings are showcased. There is LinkedIn where their career journey is showcased. But there's no one place where all of these, the entire journey of a developer end to end from, grants they've won, bounties they've won, jobs they've done, and pet projects that they've built out and, projects that they've contributed to or forked from. All of this is not there in one place. And what we essentially want to do is build a product that essentially caters to them finding opportunities in a more aggregated way, and also build an online on-chain resume for them that makes it easier to discover job opportunities better, and also have companies discover better talent in an easier way. Now, in terms of the product itself, we are building this in the form factor of a metaverse, mainly because we can cater to the entire journey of a developer, from learning to finding more like-minded folks, to discovering opportunities, to talking to the companies in a first-hand perspective in this one platform. And if we were to do it outside of a metaverse, this would be difficult because we would essentially have to roll out multiple products. Now, coming to the technologies that we're using. So to start off with, obviously there is a front end and back end to the product that we're building, right? So front end is obviously like most products out there are using React UI, and that is what we are using as well to build the interaction in the front end. And in terms of back end, we are obviously sticking to the regulars, which is Node.js. For login credentials, it's auth 0. And in terms of the on-chain data, we're looking at considering interoperable layer in terms of connecting it to several chains as opposed to having all the data stored on one chain, and also using solutions like IPFS to essentially decentralize that data. This is an overview of the technologies that we're using, but obviously in depth, we are looking at integrating several other different dev tools that exist to help the product kind of get to the next level sooner. But as we are still a work in progress in terms of building the product, these are the technologies that we're using. Now, coming to the metaverse itself, we are building it with a 3JS library. So the metaverse itself would be a browser-based metaverse that we build on 3JS.
That sounds really great. Thanks for telling me all of these technologies. Now, I want to know, is there any kind of major challenges that you must have faced while working in Lumos Labs?
100% for sure. So let me start from like the beginning, right? So back in 2018, when we ran these developer engagement programs, one of the biggest challenges that we faced was actually getting the interest of developers, because not a lot of people knew what blockchain was. And getting that interest and actually educating them from zero, saying, okay, this is how you've been learning how data is stored, right, in a centralized manner. And now kind of trying to change that mindset for them was a big hurdle actually that we had to cross. Now, over time, in the last couple of years, we've seen a lot of adoption of blockchain, and that's become a lot easier now. A lot of people at least know the underlying foundation of blockchain technology, and we don't have to get to those that level of basic understanding, right? So now there is a little more understanding. So those hurdles were crossed, but only time will sort of make this mass adoption grow faster, right? There is no other way of accelerating this understanding or the evangelism of blockchain technology. And the only way that will happen is more and more companies coming in and talking about this technology, and hiring more developers, training them, and getting them to build, right? So that was one big hurdle that we faced back in the day. Now, in recent times, it's more along the product, right? So the kind of hurdles that we face are, when you're building a browser-based metaverse, again, hardware is a big constraint. We don't know what the user that is going to be logging into our metaverse is using in terms of hardware. So how do we optimize our metaverse in such a way that we don't use the metaverse renders with a very, very low GPU, and a laptop that doesn't have that sort of GPU, right? How do we sort of make the the access of this metaverse in an easier way, where we can get this to render both on a phone as well as on a laptop. So there are these small hurdles that we are kind of coming towards and trying to solve. Also, in terms of rendering, currently rendering happens on a particular device itself, but very recently I did sort of explore new technologies that have cloud rendering. So essentially the rendering happens on the cloud and then is delivered to the server on the laptop, which means that the render time kind of reduces. So if you notice any of the metaverses that exist right now, the render times are quite high, and we need to wait at least 20 to 40 seconds for a world to load. And this is one of the biggest hurdles that we are facing as well within our organization, where we're trying to reduce that load time and make it more user friendly. That apart, I mean, obviously all of this is new technology, so there will definitely be more hurdles that we will have to cross, but we will take it one day at a time and see how we can solve for each of it.
Thanks for explaining that so well to me. Now, I want to know about your opinion on what is the future of Web3 in India.
Right. So in terms of future of Web3, I think, again, we are very, very nascent into the technology and the applications itself, right? We are just scratching the surface in terms of, what we can do with this technology. There are a lot of misconceptions that need to be sort of removed from the ecosystem, right? Developers assuming that they need to know how to develop a smart contract, or how to understanding the infrastructure in such a way is the only way they can contribute to this ecosystem. That's a very big misconception that people have. And you can contribute by being just a front-end developer and a back-end developer as well to this ecosystem. So there are a lot of these sort of challenges to cross in terms of the mass adoption and actually spreading the word of Web3 in this ecosystem. But we are moving towards the right direction. There are a lot of ecosystem enablement companies like ourselves that are helping evangelize this technology. There are a lot of education platforms out there that are actually giving free education, and in fact paying the users for learning Web3 technology. So it's called a learn to earn model, where people learn and then get incentivized for learning and completing certain quests or tasks. So there are many companies like that that are helping, build a better foundation for this technology. And in terms of the startups, I think, again, we've run a lot of startup accelerators. And back in 2018, when we ran our first accelerator ever for Web3, and back then we weren't calling it Web3 either, right? It was a blockchain accelerator. We were struggling to get startups because startups didn't even understand the applications of blockchain and why they would use this technology for their product or solution, right? But now, as we are running these newer accelerators with different chains, we've realized that the funnel or the deal flow of startups has increased quite a bit. We started with getting say 120 startups in our first ever accelerator, and the newest accelerator that we ran with Hedera, we closed the registration pipeline with about 518 startups. And this itself shows the growth of this ecosystem, right? And it doesn't stop here. It obviously kind of will go ahead and become more mainstream as we go further and have more and more of these startups helping this ecosystem. That apart, obviously, there are regulatory uncertainties, and one of the biggest hurdles to cross is having a clear regulations in terms of how do you work with cryptocurrencies, how do traders work with cryptocurrencies, how do startup founders that have their own token work in this in India or in this ecosystem. And this would actually accelerate the growth of Web3 in India itself. But only time will tell how things go, to be honest.
Well, that was really interesting. Now, please tell me some of the benefits that are waiting for the developer community in India.
Right. So one of the biggest benefits that blockchain has brought in is that you can earn USD salary sitting out of wherever you are in India, right? Remote work culture has become very, very prominent. And if you are able to put in some time and learn the blockchain infrastructure and what it takes, right? The tech stack that it takes for you to build your own chain or build, smart contracts around a product that uses this technology, you can earn a very, very big salary sitting out of anywhere. So that is one of the biggest benefits of blockchain, right? In terms of our product, what we are trying to also bring into the developers is opportunities. Now, developers don't like to, in most of them, actually, I wouldn't say all of them, don't like to stick to one company. They like to experiment. They like to look at new technologies. They like to innovate. They like to build different products. And what we essentially want to do is aggregate these opportunities so they discover these opportunities in such a way that they can contribute to several ecosystems as opposed to just sticking to one job, right? Which means that they can have a full-time job and earn a passive income, or they can be a full-time freelancer and keep, contributing to projects and earning earning from different ecosystems. So what I see, which is the biggest value add with the metaverse as a play here, is that opportunities become borderless. You can meet people online and actually figure out a working relationship with them. You can build your team online and start building products. You can find your tech team in this world. So the opportunities are limitless, right? And honestly, with developers, I think because blockchain at the end of the day is an engineering movement, they have the most number of opportunities in this space. And one of the biggest gaps I'm seeing with developers itself is security engineers, right? So all smart contracts have vulnerabilities, and these need to be audited to know that these smart contracts cannot be hacked or manipulated with. Now, this is done by a couple of audit companies that are out there, but the demand for security engineers in blockchain is very, very high, and this is something that still is a gap in the ecosystem and needs more education and evangelism to get more developers to actually look at the security side. This is not the glamorous side of blockchain. It's more unsexy, and which is why maybe a lot of people aren't delving into it. But the kind of money you can make doing this is insane, and people should start looking into that side as well. But these are a couple of things that developers can benefit from in the blockchain space.
Well, the benefit sounds really exciting. Even I feel excited. Now, lastly, I want to ask you, what are your future plans with Lumos Labs?
So to start with, what we want to build is sort of like a LinkedIn on the metaverse for developers to find opportunities. But with that, I don't see why this cannot be a LinkedIn for Web3 in the metaverse altogether, right? Why with a tech hub being built right now, which is the biggest problem and the biggest like a challenge that we've seen, we can also expand this to a design hub, a community hub where designers and community managers and marketing folks can come in and actually find opportunities in this space. So honestly, we don't want to stop at just aggregating opportunity for developers, but also start aggregating opportunities for everybody looking for a job or a freelance gig within the Web3 ecosystem. What this essentially does is builds a community of smart professionals in this one platform, which can also then become a very big R&D hub, right? This is a place where I can find another researcher that I can work with to innovate in blockchain. This is a place where I can find a CEO can find a CTO in this world, right? This is a place where I can actually gather my entire team and put it together and actually build my company from scratch, right? So the vision is that this becomes like a virtual global R&D center in a way where people can come and build the next products for the future and innovate for the future.
That sounds really amazing. I'm sure this is definitely going to help all of our listeners too. Thank you, Kavya, for joining us today in our podcast. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I wish you all the best.
Thanks so much, Satavisa. It was a great conversation. Thanks for having
Thank
me
you.
again.
Thank you.